they were coming, just so I could get a good idea. And I don't know, I think about maybe 6 of the people that RSVP'd are here, and everybody else is not, but that's fine. They're probably frozen out there, which is okay. I mean, it should be a good discussion, I hope. On behalf of SCORE, do all of you know what SCORE is? It's a bunch of old retired people that help businesses get started. Huh?
Careful, this old retired.
Hey, I'm one of them, so, you know. And I am a SCORE counselor, so if you guys have any need for more information about that, let me know. And also the Missoula Downtown Association, which is just amazing what they're doing down there, have helped me put this on, and I thank you. And also Julie Morrison, who offered the room. Julie, thank you very much. This is great. We get coffee to thaw us out. That's wonderful. I know most of you, I think, but my name's Russ Fletcher. I'm the founder of the Montana Technology Roundtable, which is a kind of a grassroots effort to try and increase networking and the knowledge about what goes into a successful business and what we can do to build more successful businesses in Montana. There's a website, matr.net. There's a newsletter twice a week, and it's getting ready to be expanded considerably here over the next, hopefully, few weeks to allow people to enter their own articles. We already have an events list where you can list events on there that you think are pertinent to the discussion. And there's also going to be a way for companies to list their profiles so that we can start raising the visibility of the Montana entrepreneurial community, which I think is really important. As with each roundtable, what we like to do is get started by having each of you stand up and give a 15-second, 20-second pitch about what you do. It's called the elevator pitch. And it's a way that hopefully if you see or hear somebody here that you want to talk to afterwards, they might have some possible collaboration or whatever. I encourage you to do that after we've had the presentation here. So let's start with you.
Thank you. Okay, my name is Krista Weathers, and I have just begun a master's degree in sustainable economics. So very interested to hear what the mayor has in mind for Missoula and Montana in general. And I was looking for people to learn from, whether that be through internships or whatever. So if you have any information that may be useful to me, please.
I'm Sue Anderson. My husband and I have a small software development company that specializes in decision management software. The name of the company is Balance Tech LLC. I'm also a board member for the Sustainable Business Council here in Missoula. I have some sustainable shopping guides with me and membership brochures if anybody's interested in that. We are interested in creating an economy here in Missoula that is not only economically viable but also socially and environmentally viable and looks into the future to create a long-term vision for what our economy looks like. So if you have any questions, continue later. Thanks.
I'm Ann Rossi. I'm with KECI here in Missoula, and we're interested in seeing how media and KECI can be part of the growing economy and the issues.
Steve MacArthur, I'm an independent management consultant and do strategic planning, team building, work on the human side of the enterprise.
Natasha Cleveland, and I'm a new realtor with Coldwell Banker Wacholz. And I'm fairly new to Missoula, so I'm really just wanting to get to know the area and begin networking.
Where'd you come from?
Washington.
Why?
Actually, I went to Billings first because I have family there, and we had lived in separate states for 10 years and wanted to reunite. But I wasn't a big fan of Billings.
Okay, well what attracted you to Missoula?
Starbucks actually brought me here.
Bingo. There we go. So we need more Starbucks.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Kent Watson, I'm a landscape architect. I have one office here in town. I specialize in large-scale land planning and design, recreation areas, trails, that kind of thing. I'm also on the SBC board with Sue Anderson, so I'm a big advocate of sustainable design and all things sustainable. Deeply concerned about the economy, particularly in eastern Montana. I realize we're not there, but there's a lot of potential out there that needs to be looked at. I'm hoping groups like this can help develop ideas that are board for the MPA. Linda just gave me the nod like, okay. So I'm glad to be here representing downtown as well, because I have an office in the downtown area.
For those of you who haven't seen it, Eastern Montana just received a $15 million WIRE award from the federal government for economic development through the governor.
I'm Cheryl Ackley, and I'm just a concerned citizen. I'm fairly new to Montana, and I'm interested to see where it's going.
I'm Michael Ackley. I'm from Missoula and originally from Portland, Oregon. And I'm concerned with transportation in the state, in the Missoula area. I'm the Vice President of Montana Association of Railroad Passengers, and also have my own painting contracting business here in town.
Hi, Christina Olson, retired from ATT Laboratories, we're working software engineering project manager, and currently working on a joint MBA Master of Economics degree. So I want to get involved and see what's happening in the business world and be more community-minded than I could when I had my head in wires.
Do you think if you do a startup, you think it'll be along the same lines?
I don't think so. No, anything but.
Okay.
My name's Jay DeVore of DeVore Printing in Stevensville. I'm up here because I wanted to find out what's John doing these days and kind of self-promote my business down in Stevensville, a small family commercial print shop, which means it covers just about everything from business cards up to newsletters to envelopes to stationery. And I'm taking Russ's class to kind of fine-tune things in my shop so I can figure out how to run a business after a while.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Michelle Sayre. I'm a budding entrepreneur. I've started one business previously. It was a little carding mill. My interest is trying to enrich economies in frontier communities.
I'm Rosemary Lynch. I'm a nurse in town, and I have a vision for supported elder housing built within these neighborhoods that are springing up all over our town instead of up next to the weird strippers.
We'll get to you later. Jack Wade, moved here about 11 years ago for grad school, and I'm a commercial and residential broker at Niagara.
My name is Sean Skinner. I'm managing a company called Falco in town. We manufacture excavator attachments and basically heavy industrial equipment. Up here because we're part of the Missoula economy.
You're buying the beer.
I know. And we've been misled by storms for a while.
Oh, now you're buying lunch next time. Boy, I tell you.
Buy lunch every time.
My name is Cameron Beach. I'm an MBA student here at the University of Montana. I came out here to get my MBA from California. My background is in solar power in California, electrical engineering. And so I'm out here led one of my professors to come and find out what's going on in Missoula. And I really like to stay in Missoula and work out here, just finding the right career path. Thank you.
Hi, I'm David McMillan. I'm with TCS here in town, and we provide worldwide IT solutions. And I'm also developing a sustainable energy product on the side based on micro CHP technology.
Just so people know, David, how big is the parent company of TCS?
Changes every day. We're at about 45,000 in 33 countries. So.
Is it Tata?
Tata.
Yes. Yeah, we're a subsidiary.
This is something that's absolutely unique to Missoula. We have a subsidiary of Tata Consultancy, which is like the #2 largest company in India.
Tata itself is the largest.
Largest company, sorry. It's absolutely amazing, not count.
I'm Betsy Allen. I recently changed hats. I worked in the public sector. I was field representative for Senator Burns. I don't hail from Missoula. I come from Helena. I have taken a position with a company out of Redlands, California called Information Systems Management Solutions, ISMS. And I've been on board with them for about 7 weeks and decided to come over and just check in, see what's going on in Missoula.
Great.
Thanks, Russ.
And where's this based?
Redlands, California.
Redlands, yeah. So getting a lot of interest.
My name is Chris Larson. I'm from Portland, Oregon. Here to connect some faces and some names and some voices. I've pestered a lot of you on the phone recently. As some of you know, I'm trying to decide if Missoula is a community for my kids and for my wife and myself, both in terms of cultural fit and also in terms of kind of making economically. That's it.
What, if you did come here, what type of business would you be starting?
My passion is innovation in the intersections of sustainability, agriculture, technology, and economic development. So those are the areas that I'm looking for. Whether or not I combine all 4 or 5 of those or 2 of those, I don't know. That's, my background is product development, high-tech product development, project management, project consulting, product development.
Well, hello.
Hey, Russ, how are you? I'm John Balsam. I'm with NHT Inc., and which is a subsidiary of NCAP, the National Center for Appropriate Technology, over in Butte. We have offices in Butte, over here in Missoula. We're a company that provides a variety of services to small technology companies, especially those wanting to do business with the federal government. We specialize in government accounting, commercialization of technologies, etc. We tour in sustainable energy, sustainable agriculture, the whole issue of sustainability, and be happy to talk with anybody who shares those interests. Thank you, Russ, for pulling this together.
It's a match. I get a finder's fee. Mr. Sarah.
He's doing a project for a semester with them. You
Oh.
can't take a finder's fee.
Oh, well. There you go. Yes.
Yeah, I'm Steve Surratt. I'm a software developer and the founder of a company, small software.
He's way too modest. It's a great story. Jackie?
I'm Jackie Moore, and I'm laughing at Steve because he just spoke. I teach high-tech marketing at the university, and he just spoke to my students this afternoon about how he's built this great, huge company using Google AdWords, and so it's not a small company that he's talking about. So other than speaking about Steve for him, because he didn't speak for himself, I teach high-tech marketing at the university and marketing management. I'm the author of a book called Marketing with High Technology Products that's used 30 schools domestically and about 70 schools internationally.
He's in print.
That's a publisher. That's a publisher.
I'm Heidi DeArmond. I work at the Clark Fork Coalition. I work with ranchers to try to find opportunities to market their products outside of the commodity market. I teach marketing with Jackie at the university, and I do business development and consulting for companies in the organic and natural food industry.
Did you see that Made in Montana is going to have another event this year?
No.
Again? Yeah, they're revising the whole program. So that'll be great.
Hi, I'm Melanie Brock. I work for Senator Max Baucus here in the Missoula office. And you know my boss, he's all about economic development. Jobs, jobs, jobs is all he ever asks and tells us to work on. So I thought it would be very appropriate to come here and report back to him what you talked about today, because that is his major focus. I'm very glad to be here.
Do you want to give them a heads up for May?
Yeah, we're going to be having an economic development summit in Butte in the end of May. So you will all be hearing about this. I'm sure we'll be flooding the airwaves, newspapers, and what have you about this. But Butte America, trying to put that back on the map and talk about economic development, some long-range planning for the state, and how the federal dollars can help that.
If any of you have been to any of the previous economic summits, you'll know that we end up having about 500 people at these things, and it's just networking on steroids. It's absolutely wonderful. I'm so glad he's going to hold another one.
So we'll make sure Russ has all the information too, so you can be a good passer on of the information once we have it set in stone.
Phil?
Well, my name's Phil Mason. I currently work for the Forest Service here in Missoula, and I just went under the 5-year mark. I'm on the home stretch to, I don't want to call it retiring, ending one career and going to another. I'm currently taking Russ's Starting Your Business class up here through the adult ed center. Kudos to Russ. It's a great class. It really makes you think. That's what I like about it. So.
Wait till you see the final.
Yeah. So yeah, he told us about this and said to start, this I guess start on the ground level, start getting in, and Mayor Engen or whoever speak, I have to leave it a little after. I'm not rude or this. I have a memorial service to attend in Stevensville tonight, so if you see me cut out here a little after 5, it's not. I have to. So
I can't imagine anyone leaving a speech on. Thank you, that's great.
Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Russ. Pete Peterson. I have my own insurance agency, so basically what I do is help people save money, keep healthy, and reduce their liabilities out there with employees and as well as themselves. I've started in, about 4 businesses. This one is currently in its 21st year. Prior to that, I spent about 20 years teaching at the University of Montana and Michigan State University. I'm also a member of the board of the Chamber of Commerce in Missoula.
Lynn.
I'm Lynn Churchill, and I am general manager of a consulting firm called Starboard Associates. And we help a number of small companies design systems and communications for new products, also entrepreneurs. I'm also Chief Technology Officer for a company here in town that deals with critical communications for Homeland Security and Defense called Vision Corporation. And I also direct a nonprofit corporation that actually hosts activities for the Department of Education here in Missoula.
Thank you.
I'm Craig Flint, owner of Computer ER here in Missoula. We've been in business about 7 years, do computer consulting, a little bit of repair, both Mac and PC. So, glad to hear you speak.
I'm Linda McCarthy. I'm lucky enough to serve as the director of the Missoula Downtown Association. And our organization is charged with maintaining, creating a healthy, vibrant downtown. We have about 400 members. And I was invited to participate by Russ.
Thank you. I had the pleasure of sitting down with Mayor Engen several weeks ago, and just talking about general, thoughts, ideas, what his goals were for the next 4 years as leader of Missoula. And it became pretty apparent that he has a strong commitment towards really looking at the economy of Missoula and where it can go. And I think it kind of brought home to me a comment that I like to use a lot. You can either be on the bus or under it. And I think that the mayor has some ideas and thoughts, but more importantly, he'd like to hear from people, I believe, about where we would like to see Missoula go. Whether this is going to be a reactive community in terms of how our economy develops, or whether it can be a proactive community. And I think that there is a real strong leadership in place now that through communications and through his leadership, I think there's a very bright future for Missoula. And so I was very pleased when he offered to come and talk about his vision for the economy of Missoula. Mayor Engen.
Well, thank you very much, Russ. I'm assuming folks can hear me okay? Yeah, and you can see me okay? I was worried that I wouldn't be on MCAT again. I actually probably need some liability insurance for folks who just tune in and hear me sometimes. Thank you very much for having me. I'm John Engen. I'm a subsidiary of the Missoula City Council, or at least that's what they think. And I used to serve as a city council person before that. And in fact, until sometime this afternoon, I had a small company called Engen Creative. I did advertising, marketing, publications. Before that, I co-owned and continue to co-own, actually, a travel agency in Missoula called Wide World of Travel. Before that, I worked for the newspaper for a long time. And that's where Jay DeVore and I first met. He was a press operator. 1967 Goss Urbanite. There's no finer device available. They still make parts for that, Jay?
Well, as of recently, I wouldn't know. I've now moved on from the great and benevolent Lee Enterprises to my own self-enterprise. So,
good for you.
But when I left, they were upgrading the press with 5 other cloned Urbanite units. So I was wondering about if they had requested the city for donations of chewing gum and duct tape.
Not yet, but it's probably early. I'm much more interested in hearing from you today than I am in hearing myself talk. But let me give you the short version here. Mayor Bob Lovegrove had a PhD in economics. Mayor Dan Kimmis was an attorney, political scientist. Mayor Mike Cadis had a master's degree in economics. I went to journalism school. So guess what? I'm making all of this up. These folks were all about economy, and I'm a little more school of hard knocks economy. But there are some things that I think are really important. This is one of them. Having these opportunities for folks to meet, greet, understand what one another is about and how we might work together. There are a number of things I'd like to talk about briefly here that have, I think, everything to do with what the future of Missoula's economy is about. Growth and development is a key component here. And the question that we need to ask ourselves, and the question that's been a struggle for the last 4 years and before that for this community, is where do we want to grow? We've figured out a lot of places where we're happy to say no. Our struggle now is where do we say yes? And I have a couple of ideas about that. And Linda may appreciate this. One of the places that I think we need to say yes is in downtown Missoula, for lots of good reasons. Not the least of which is the zoning today is in place to do the kind of dense housing that's going to create some opportunity and some choice for folks who are moving here from elsewhere, folks who were born here, folks who are dying here. Condominium living is something that's just starting to catch on, I think, in Missoula. I think we're on the cusp of some real innovative development in terms of condominium living. And I tell folks that if you're starting out, it's a great time of your life to share a wall or a ceiling or a floor. And if you're just finishing up, it's not bad either. It's good to have a neighbor on the other side of the wall. And that was interesting. I heard you mention that we might be interested in having some opportunity for seniors to live, some choices, so that they're not kind of on the outskirts of town, as it were. We have lots of conversations about downtown sustainability. I spent 9 months running for mayor, and one of the questions that I got a lot was, what are you going to do to maintain a healthy and viable downtown? What makes downtown alive? And I think it's life. You have people living in downtown Missoula, and I think a lot of things spring from that. We have some real opportunity there. Not long ago, pardon me, while I was still on city council, there was a small effort to change the zoning in the central business district. I don't think I've ever not supported the notion of a public hearing on an idea. I didn't support a public hearing on that idea. That's the place where we can and need to say yes. This morning I met with some folks who are very interested in establishing the municipality of Target Range. That's probably a place where today we're going to hear no. So we need to keep looking around. I told folks as I was campaigning, we squabbled over houses in backyards, and it's gotten us nowhere. We haven't produced more places for folks to live that work for all sorts of folks. We haven't provided the kinds of choices that we need to provide. And I don't think, if you don't have some equity in a home, you're going to have some difficulty doing lots of other things. We're in business today because we had equity in a home. It helped us decide whether we were going to stay in business at one time. And if you're an entrepreneur, sometimes you pay other folks before you pay yourself. Equity in a home provides some security and some opportunity. I think that's important. So let's create choices. Let's figure out where we can say yes, and then let's do it. Let's encourage that. So those are growth and development pieces of business. You've all heard of DirecTV, I'm assuming, and the county's project in cooperation with the state and federal government. I think that's a neat project. It's a little unique to the community, and I think the approach this time around has been a pretty good one. There are lots of examples around the state of Montana of incentive programs for corporations to come to your community and forgive me, I call it a bend over incentive. Eventually, I mean, you do everything you possibly can for a company, and one of our communities in particular has had bitter experience with incentives. I think this is a pretty good package. I think we've learned, which is great. One of the reasons DirecTV is coming here, one of the reasons you're making some choices about whether this is a place where you want your family to live, work, play, is what we have around us. February 16th is probably not the best example of why you might want to live in Missoula, Montana.
Come on, John, it's tropical out. It's right.
One of the few days I'm grateful for my weight. But as you look around, we have remarkable amenities, not the least of which is that river that requires us to build expensive bridges, but that's okay. I think it's well worth it. The North Hills, Mount Jumbo, Mount Sentinel, our trail system, all of which are part of our open space program. I think DirecTV makes a choice between Somewhereville, Texas, and here because of where we are. We're working on an open space bond today in cooperation with the county that could lead us to a couple of places. But regardless of where we end up, I think the question is, what do we want to preserve about the place? And that's the flip side to dense development and having more souls live here, I think, is having access to open space and those natural amenities that I think we hold dear. And I think we need to work together to purchase and preserve those and give ourselves, I think, access and opportunity. In the age of telecommuting and beyond, folks in this room know that depending on what you do, you can do it almost anywhere. Well, I think this is a hell of a good place to do it. But we need to work on those things that are important. Open space is one of them. So I went to, 3 weeks ago now, I double dipped. Went to Gallatin County to talk to their open lands board with the county commissioners. I went to, took a quick trip up to Helena to talk to the director of the Department of Transportation about West Broadway. Went back to Gallatin County for a conference of mayors. There were 61 mayors gathered at the MSU campus. 61 mayors in one room and not an ego in the place. Met the mayor of Saco, Montana. And it's interesting, the things we have in common. One of the things we don't have in common, but which I thought provided a remarkable economic development story, was Mayor of Saco has roughly 169 constituents. This is an incorporated town in the state of Montana, and it's a charter government, which means they have self-governing powers. They can make remarkable choices under our really elegant constitution about the way they operate their town, their municipality. Saco happens to sit on 3 natural gas wells. They own them. The town of Saco owns 3 natural gas wells. If you live in the town of Saco, you pay roughly $1.40 something for a gallon of natural gas, right? If you live down the street and you're buying it from the good folks at the city of Saco, you pay roughly $14 for the same unit. The town of Saco next year will probably be able to stop charging property taxes. They're going to operate the town of Saco on the interest of the surplus of the energy that they sell from these natural gas wells. So that's kind of a microcosm. Can you imagine what you could do with the money you're not spending in property taxes from an economic development standpoint? So, when folks ask me, do you think it's a good idea for the big cities to think about acquiring Northwestern Energy? My answer is yes. I think it's a good idea to pursue. I don't know whether we'll get there. It's not uncomplicated. It's not perfect, and it's certainly not the SACO model, but I think controlling our energy future gives us some chance at sustainability, some chance at predictability, and a great chance of prosperity. West Broadway, while we're on the topic. So the joke I've been using lately, Jack heard this yesterday or the day before when I spoke at Lambros. I'd have been here sooner, but I came down West Broadway. West Broadway is a lot of things. We can talk about the pros and cons of what's there today. But West Broadway ain't just a street. West Broadway is a model, I think, for how we might approach economic development and community redevelopment in the city of Missoula, Montana. We've had a lot of bumps in the road, metaphorically, literally, but I think we're at a place where we can have a conversation about some of the things we want to do there. We're doing two things, the second of which is probably more interesting. The first of which we're going to try to figure out, we're going to present the community with some alternatives. How do you want this road to look? Let's try this again. Let's take another pass at it. That's a short-term question, and it's really about the road. The long-term question, which we're going to chase down through a charrette, is what do we want that corridor to do for our community? Is West Broadway the grand entrance to downtown Missoula? Is it a corridor that honors that river that means so much to the community? How does the corridor and the medical community that's happening on one end relate to the residential community that's springing up across the river near the other end? What do we want to have happen there? What does the mill site mean to Orange Street? What does Clark Fork Commons mean to Hoagieville? And what does it all mean to Reserve Street or Madison Street? These are economic development questions and redevelopment questions, and I think we need to have meaningful conversations about that. It's not just a street. There are complex issues that come with West Broadway, and it really, I think, is going to be one of the things that defines the way we look at downtown Missoula for the next 100 years. And if medical technology continues to improve, I hope to see at least 10 of those? Yeah, no, I think I could do better. So those are some of the things that are on my mind. We have infrastructure issues, we have cultural issues, we have civility issues, and we have nothing but opportunity. I think that's what the next 4 years are about, and I hope the next 20 years are about. Let's take a deep breath and talk to each other about the things that we can do well, and let's make good choices. The kind of energy that you get in this scenario gets carried to the next scenario, gets carried to the next scenario. One of the things that's remarkable to me is that I'll go to the mayor's office, and in the morning I'll hear about somebody who wants to start a zoo in Grant Creek. Or someone who's got the most brilliant idea you've ever heard for a small business and just needs a little help. This is a great job in a great community with great opportunity. So that's kind of my short shtick, and I'm happy to answer questions or ask them or hear comments.
I'm going to use my prerogative here, ask a quick question here. But it's great because a lot of you are business owners or developing businesses or involved in the business community. But that brings up a good question. When that person does come to you with a brilliant idea and just needs some more help, where do you send them? Where do you network with them?
And that's where I'm trying to get my sea legs here a little bit. I mean, you're a resource, Rosalie Cates is a resource, MAEDC is a resource.
Right.
And in some cases, I can connect somebody with an individual who I've stumbled across in my travels. There's a great book, The Tipping Point, which is about a million things, but connectors are key, you know. And that's, I think, a big part of my job, especially in terms of economic development.
Is there anything on the city website that has these connections?
No. And Bob Jaffe and I, Councilman Bob Jaffe is in the back of the room. We're just talking about that this afternoon. One of the things that we have a communications job at the city of Missoula. That position closes, applications for that position close on the 28th of this month. And one of the first things I'm going to ask our new communications officer to do is help us create a web presence that's a lot more meaningful. We've done the best we can in-house for a long time, but I think it's really time to ramp it up. That's a great tool for us, and it's a great resource for the community, but we need some help making that happen.
And some of the people, maybe your experiences, you know, how did you find out about things? How did you start connecting with people?
Well, some of the pieces, Rosalie, I talked to her.
How did you find Rosalie?
I guess if you're diligent, I mean, there are a lot of, Google's a great tool.
Google, okay.
Is one way, and then I think I know some people in the area. I'm from Big Tim originally, so you start meeting connectors and they start throwing names out. And you know, one of the things that I've been most impressed about by the community is how willing people are with their time to take the time to talk to a total stranger about, you know, some hard questions. Why do you live in Missoula? What's the opportunities? What's the culture? Those questions are, you know, pretty random. and the people that I've spoken to have been really wonderful with that. So in a community like Missoula, it's easy. It's easy to break it down. It's not that big, so you get a couple people and you can get what you need to say.
Well, maybe whoever is the communications director, just talking to some of these people who are in the process of coming back, or, you know, your example of you know, what did you look for when you came to Missoula?
You know, I wasn't really looking for anything when I came to Missoula. I had the opportunity and I just jumped on it. I didn't check into Missoula at all. I'm now in that process of really researching Missoula.
So you bought the stock and then you're doing due diligence. Boy, you're a great investor.
So Natasha's Natasha's an example of Missoula. So she comes here. I meet her because she's serving a fine cup of coffee at Starbucks, and we talk. And she's great at what she does. She's fabulous at what she does. And then we talk some more, and she gets me to give blood at a blood drive, and and at that point, I also find out she's like everyone else in Missoula. She works another job, so she's got 2 jobs, but she's always looking. I mean, she's always looking, and that's it's pretty good.
Steve, I'm sorry. John, this is kind of pointed, but you know, I still have a page on my own website. My own website gets over 5,000 visitors a day. Personal site. And I have a page on my site that's averaging more than 200 people a day visiting. And I get a lot of mail. I get 10 letters a day still because of the subdevelopment that is next to my house. And one of the things that's come up more than I mean, it's Google has tools that are free for cities or schools or nonprofit organizations, where all you have to do is put files in in directories on a server, and Google will create the search tool to find them. So you don't need to build a web page, or technically, you just have to put files in a directory the same as you would on your home computer. So.
Good to know. My preference is that stuff is as available as it can be. So I can tell you that it's a little bit like when I was in the newspaper business. Folks would suggest on a pretty regular basis that I was either part of an enormous left-wing conspiracy or an enormous right-wing conspiracy, depending on the day and the issue. I always told people, we can barely conspire to get this thing out every day.
And there's an interesting thing in this technological group here is that, because it comes up constantly, is that all of the tools are in place that don't cost anything to make virtually any information that you can get through channels that are convoluted and complex, instantaneously accessible.
I'm all about some.
I think there's an incredible technical community in Missoula. I mean, some of the engineers and software developers that I know, I think many of them would be willing to volunteer, collaborate, whatever it may be, because a more transparent government is, a great economic development tool.
Right. But one of the things, as Google's been brought up several times, is you don't need to spend energy figuring out how to arrange and sort information these days. You just need files in a directory, and Google will let people find those files. So in other words, you don't need to spend weeks or months or years trying to decide how do we create a web page to get information out there. You could just tell the employees who are involved with the web page, anything that could be printed and handed out legally, we want as a file on the server, and we want to install the Google search tool on the server, and it should take 5 minutes to do.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Just a quick comment and question before I take off here. Being a budding entrepreneur, my first experience when I went to a city bureaucracy was one of what do I do now? I went to Ruskin.
Oh,
He
good.
was a striker soccer dad. Had a state tournament here a couple years ago. I wanted to set up a concessionaires business, raise money for help the team and do this. I go to the city parks. I get handed, here's what you have to do. Why can't the comment be, what can we do to help you? And maybe you as the mayor. Help budding entrepreneurs. What do we have to do for requirements? What's the city? Give us some resources on where to go. The other question is, why is Missoula more expensive than Fairbanks, Alaska to live in? I was spending 3 to 6 weeks a year each year in Fairbanks working, and when I'm sitting around in my room and I look at costs and things, why can I go and buy gasoline for 20 cents a gallon cheaper in Fairbanks, or go to Fred Meyer or Walmart, buy stuff cheaper, but not especially there, even the local stores, prices are comparable. And the point I'm dwelling at is if livability issues here for medium income wage earners, you're not, in Alaska you have the opposite of the higher wages. Here you don't. And I assume they think Fairbanks is probably cheaper than Missoula. Maybe that's something to point to ponder.
I appreciate that. I'll send that along to the governor.
Yeah, I realize a lot of that's beyond, but it's beyond your.
And that's really my strategy is I just email Brian.
Yeah. So.
Complex questions, and I wish I had better answers. I mean, I cannot begin to tell you why it's more expensive here than in Fairbanks.
Yeah. So I have to go.
Nice to see you.
Just a second. The one comment is, I just read a report, and we think of Montana as a fairly progressive state, and we're trying to do things. I just saw a report that only 18% of the jobs in Montana meet the standards for living wage. As an example, Idaho is at 56%. So we have a challenge here, and I think that we can go about, and I realize the DirecTV and all that is a good economic development activity, but we need to take a look at $15 an hour jobs with benefits. Those are the types of things that we need to kind of focus on. I think instead of and this is what I tell my entrepreneurship class, you can either, work for a company or a company can work for you. We got to raise our levels a little bit.
Well, and one of the things that you suggest, Russ, that I buy is that we can spend lots of time looking for a silver bullet, and there probably isn't one. So we just need to cultivate. We need to cultivate all the time, and you know, these are pieces of this puzzle. So.
Lynn?
One of the things about economic development, especially with technology companies, is infrastructure. And I'm just curious in terms of current projects that you have on the plate or are looking at that will, I say, increase accessibility in terms of broadband and expanding that Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I just had a conversation 3 weeks ago now with Blackfoot about let's do a Wi-Fi experiment downtown, and what better place to do it? I would love to have downtown have a great Wi-Fi network, and there are lots of issues just talking to one vendor and so on, as we've discovered. But having said all of that, that's one thing that I'm very interested in, and every time I mention Wi-Fi, I get, wow, excellent, thank you for thinking about that, thanks for talking about that. It's somebody's going to step up and get us cooking, and there are companies, I get emails at least once a week from a company that's ready to wire our town for Wi-Fi. And here's the price tag. So that's the modeling difficulty that we have. But that's a piece of it. Other than that, we rely largely on the private sector to take care of that technology infrastructure.
Well, one time we floated the idea of a public-private partnership to build a high-speed ring around Missoula. And my understanding is some of that may be going forward. And again, looking at how can both the public and private sector work together.
One of the great places for us to think about those kinds of projects, I think, are within our redevelopment agency. And I think our third urban renewal district in particular is a great spot to think about that. URD 3, as we call it, is roughly also called Midtown. It's the area, that would be about south of Mount Avenue, and takes in kind of the Holiday Village, College of Technology, out to Reserve Street, up Brooks kind of area. Southgate Mall is excluded from that urban renewal district. But we had a meeting last week, another kind of networking piece, and making sure that communication is taking place here. Met with the university president, Jim Foley was there, and we talked about the College of Technology. College of Technology is interested in workforce development. So while they're interested in workforce development, they're thinking about lifting the thing up and moving it way out on South Avenue. And there are lots of complications, and I'm not going to pretend to be the university president, but what I did suggest is that if we're talking about workforce development, let's do workforce development where people are working, and let's give people opportunity, especially in that third urban renewal district. Let's figure out some way to incorporate College of Technology in kind of that area that's ripe for redevelopment, and take advantage of our resources there and work together on something like that. So that might be a place where we can build those partnerships.
How many hotspots are there in downtown? Do you know?
I'd say 15 to 20.
Yeah, 15 to 20 hotspots. So
I'd like to know why you think, or what's the great idea about having, all of downtown wireless? Why do you think that's going to matter?
Why is it?
Why would that matter? I mean, what is that going to do for downtown? Having, downtown wireless.
So anecdotally, I think it's attractive for folks to be able to communicate. I know that with every passing day, I depend more and more on my laptop. I also have what we affectionately call the Crackberry with me most of the time. But I know that I can do business, I can have conversations, and I can have more productive time if I have access to a wireless C2C, a wireless network. So you know, part of it's a funk value, part of it's an entertainment value, but I think more and more it's becoming a business necessity.
I think it becomes a recruitment tool too. You know, when you're talking about trying to recruit businesses to move into downtown, whether they're from other parts of the community or from other parts of the state or the region, if you can sell downtown as a great place to relocate your business because we're wireless, because we have these great new buildings or great old buildings, it helps in business recruitment practices.
It would make the difference in whether we decide to locate downtown, which is a decision we're making right now, or not out in downtown.
Well, let us help you with that.
You would choose downtown for free wireless.
We pay for
You would
some
pay
of
for
that.
it, but in what way? I mean, who's going to bill you? Who's going to?
Well, I think that's still to be determined, but if that wireless system were downtown, that'd be a huge factor for us. And just like Russ's whole organization is all about technology firms. Lynn brought it up. I think it can make a huge difference. Personally, I don't want to see it restricted to downtown. I'd like to see it community-wide.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm in technology and I know about wireless, and it's definitely nice. I just want to know why downtown what really is. I mean, why not?
Because we have light posts.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Really.
You want to find area.
Needs something, like you said, sort of a funkability to bring people into the community, to keep these businesses going.
Well, other communities are finding that it's a lot more than that. In that once you start making that available, the networking that starts happening and the business development really starts taking off. And there are models where companies will come in and do it for free. They gain the revenue through ads or whatever it may be. But I think there's enough different models, hopefully. And I was part of that group, Lynn, long ago that started on that, and it kind of died. But I think there's enough interest in Missoula. I don't think it should be a major problem to get this started.
I just want to make a comment as somebody who's watched Missoula grow over the last 20 years, sort of from the outside in, and I've seen a lot of changes here, and have lived in other places across the country that were small to medium sized and grew to a point where people who had lived there for years and years came to not like it as much as they did when they were younger, or people who lived there, who moved in there in the 80s, 10 years later didn't like it as much as they did when they first moved there. And it seems to me that a vibrant center city is one of the greatest things that any town could have, and you can't be vibrant enough. And you talked about growth downtown, and we're talking about the wireless aspect of downtown. And the thing about the condominiums, I mean, I just think that's fantastic. You want to get people moving into town instead of out away from town, where they're going to chew up more of the countryside and interfere with all the things we like to do. But my question is, are there any zoning impediments for businesses in the downtown area that would keep people from wanting to come in?
Central business district zoning is really pretty attractive.
It is.
There's no parking requirement, for one thing, which is huge. It can be inconvenient as well, but I mean, if you don't have to invest $1,500 to $3,000 per space for parking, I think there's a real advantage. Zero lot line. There are no setbacks typically in downtown. No, I think central business district zoning is very attractive, not only for businesses, but for residential development as well. A quick example, this doesn't get anywhere near affordability, but a quick example is on the corner of Broadway and Orange. The Broadway lofts, retail at street level, the condominiums up top. Zero setback. They take full advantage of that lot. And I think that's a great use for that piece of downtown Missoula. I think we're going to see more of that.
Is there any resources in place, or is there a system in place where we have some sort of outreach to go into other communities that have hit that point of critical mass and say, hey, come to downtown Missoula, bring your business here?
Not really. We don't do a lot of recruiting. We just established through the Downtown Association, the efforts of the Downtown Association, we just established a business improvement district. That is, downtown businesses elected to tax themselves in order to do some of those promotional pieces, some of those marketing pieces, and other improvement, efforts. So that's a start, but in terms of, I think, an active recruiting process, not so much. But
Would you be in favor of that if there was the money to do it?
oh yeah, I think or cultivation for that matter. I mean, how do we make it? If you're downtown doing business already, can we make it easier for you? Can we help you?
Right.
Are there tools that are missing? And we talk about that pretty regularly.
Well, and I'm going to ask another question because you brought up something really great: recruiting versus grow them here. This is a question that I asked you. We have got a very, very vibrant university here that has I don't know how many millions of dollars a year in research and development. Is there anything the city can do to help encourage additional tech transfer? There's a lot of great research going on over there that I think there are some companies in there somewhere, but we're not seeing them come out into the light of day. And some of them would be excellent downtown.
Was that a question?
That's a question.
What was the question?
What can the city do to try and influence that, or is that an appropriate action by the city?
Well, other than I think through demonstrating leadership and being a promoter of downtown, I have the best office downtown. You've seen it. I have the best views. I mean, it's all good where I am. So I continue to promote downtown pretty regularly and as often as I can. Beyond that, I mean, it's a struggle with limited financial resources. What are the steps we take, and how do we make things happen? Bob and I were talking about this today. How do we cultivate? One of the things we talked about, Bob and I thought had a great idea. If the difference in making a purchase is X number of dollars, should the city have X number of dollars set aside so that we can make that purchase locally? Can we subsidize that purchase in an effort to keep those dollars in Missoula, working here? So I'm looking for those ideas. Again, journalism school.
I've also nominated him, at my attempt, I nominated him to be a judge at the business plan competition that's in May, which I hope he has enough time to do, because he can then go and see, hey, this is a great business, we should get it.
And the entrepreneurial spirit at the business school, I just got a sponsorship package as well.
Along the lines of doing some really cost-effective outreach, I would have to disagree with this gentleman on one hand in terms of a web presence. The city could have a beautiful, beautiful website that reflects all the great things about Missoula. Easy access to all the attractive elements for business that people would find just by doing dumb luck searches, on top of the people who are actually searching for it. I did searches on the city of Missoula, and I didn't see the real value. I didn't see anything that was hitting me in the face that's like, this is the real value. Well, I can bring my DirecTV company there. There's a great pool. There's a great workforce. My existing people that have been there can say, wow, what a great place to live. I don't see those things hitting me in the face. We've had a lot of things happen in Montana in the last month or so that people nationwide, even the Libby thing is a nationwide story now with investors. Some guy is bored in some office in Seattle or Washington, D.C. could do a search on, could just come up with something that bam, hits them in the face and say, wow, we've been thinking about opening an office in Denver, we've been for Phoenix, how about Missoula? That's cost-effective advertising. You have a beautiful, user-friendly web presence. And we don't.
I agree, and I think we can serve a couple of masters. I think we can be utterly utilitarian, but I think we can do that with some elegance as well.
Yes, Mayor. Downtown development is a great idea, but not everyone's going to fit in there. They all don't have business that they need an office space. So what is the city looking for if we're doing fiber to the home?
Again, we rely on the private sector to deliver. One of the best things we've been able to do, I think, is at least through franchise agreements. We've done some work with President, and they've upgraded, and they've upgraded in the Rattlesnake, and working on that. It's when the question is open space or fiber, I can sell an open space lawn. I'm not sure I can sell a fiber lawn. most days, I think I can sell an open space block. You know, fire, you know, do we build fire stations? So I mean, you know, that kind of community priority. So I'm hoping that we achieve some sort of critical mass. So folks are saying, yeah, I need business quality access at my home.
I think there's a new tool that's been developed on a statewide level, and I know just a little bit about it, but it's a tax increment financing tool for technology development. You know, that could be a tool that the community can use to, you know, develop, you know, technology advances where we need them.
And our office can help you with that, tax increment financing, and credits, max rights, those laws. So we have 4 tax counselors on our staff, so whatever your business is, come in. I've ever had questions about.
Remind me to make a call in April.
Yeah, well, yeah.
No,
We don't
I appreciate
post it in April.
Oh, I
but
understand, yeah.
That tax credit, we can help businesses with.
No, that's
Any
good.
questions about it?
And I think that the whole, if you look at Missoula, I think the things we're talking about, technology and connectivity and the sense of community, they're the real selling points that we have here. We just need to fill in some of the missing pieces here. And I hope that you'll stay as open, you know, to the concerns and the suggestions that a lot of these people have.
If there's one thing I can do, it's have an open door and an open mind. I mean, I at least have that capacity, and sometimes I have capacity for a coaching thought. Yes.
Oh, I'm fairly new. Only been here about 7 years in Missoula, but we're talking about growth and attracting new people. And in business, we always want to grow our businesses and get better. But I hear an overwhelming voice in our community saying, not only we don't want to grow, we don't want anybody building houses in our neighborhood, and is growth that, you know, we have no houses for people to live in now. We recruit a bunch of companies where we're going to put those people in the infrastructure to take care of them. I'm not personally in favor of a lot of growth. I've got my house, I'm here, so everybody else can go away now.
So Stan is a friend of mine. And I was actually hoping for a softball. You know, I mean, that's our struggle, and that's our struggle. So, you know, Mike Cadis is, you know, we're not going to know Mike Cadis' legacy for 20 years. But today, one of the things that you hear is, you know, density, damn density. We don't want density, but we sure as hell don't want sprawl. So, and I mean, that's what Mike repeated over and over again. We don't want density and we don't want sprawl. So, what I'm trying to do is say, let's have a conversation about where we want to say yes. I think we can do that. But it ain't easy. You're absolutely right, Stan. It ain't easy, and, you know, I mean, some of this is, I try to avoid what I call the politics of personal preference. Once in a while, I engage in it, but generally speaking, you know, my preference for a home might be, you know, craftsman style on 7,000 square feet, but that doesn't work for everybody. I tell you, with each passing summer, I am less and less interested in pulling on that cord on a lawnmower, mowing a lawn, then watering the stinking thing, and doing it all over again.
Never enjoying it, because you're always working.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? So, you know, that's it. And I think we need to, as a community, we need to have, you know, do our best to have some tolerance for those choices. And it's not easy. And, you know, it's interesting, you mentioned, you know, communities sort of reach this critical mass where folks who have lived there forever just don't want to live there anymore. They don't like it anymore. I lived here all my life. I like Missoula better now than when I was a kid, because I remember when downtown was boarded up, and you know, I tell people pretty regularly where the Civic Stadium is now. That's where I first learned to drink Sterno. I mean, it was a bad place to be when I was a kid. So,
if growth is inevitable, and it is in every western town, and I agree with you,
But I also agree with you, doesn't it make sense to try to create incentives where the growth happens in town, where there's already concrete, where there's already bricks and mortar, and build that up? Instead of building it out and taking up open space, which is what attracts people here. People who live in town have access to goods and services downtown. They get out of their house and they walk and they get what they need. That's where a modern city should go. So you don't have all these trips coming into town, all this congestion, because it's the congestion which lowers the quality of life. You can have growth without congestion, and you can bring in companies that can pay people a good wage as opposed to the Walmart jobs.
And lots of people are working on that, and you know, the other side of that is, you know, I left wherever I left because I didn't want to live in a dense urban jungle, and so you know, again, striking that balance, and I think we can try to do both, but I really think downtown's our best shot.
Well, you know, now that we're on the subject, and I'll do less time I open up, because I know everybody wants to talk, but where do you stand in particular on, every time I read about development in this area, I read about these outside developers coming in from places like Seattle, Denver, Salt Lake, who knows where, coming in, they're building tract houses, they're building small and large developments, taking the profits back to these other towns. I mean, what good does that do a community, aside from create some short-term construction jobs?
Very little of that happens in Missoula, to my knowledge. Most of our development community is homegrown.
Well, maybe I'm thinking about maybe this happens in the valley.
No, I'm trying to think actually of an out-of-state developer.
Several places.
I'm trying to think of an out-of-state developer that I've dealt with at City Hall, and I really can't. I mean, well, I think we're fortunate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I share a story about development and contracting and stuff? Downtown, we've developed the Downtown Streets project, and it's really, as John would say, sexy plan for improving how we interact with each other. And the first part of the 10-point plan was to rescape the North Higgins Avenue, north of Broadway, to do curb bulbouts and create gathering places, change the parking so it's angle parking, add sidewalk planters and park benches, and you know, that pedestrian scale, attractive lighting that we like so much. And twice now we've bid it out to local contractors, and twice now there's been one local contractor that's bid on it, and it's been 2.5 times what's been estimated to cost. And you know, that there is, I think, a mentality among the contracting businesses in the community. They don't want to do business downtown. They don't want to redevelop old buildings and sidewalks and streets. You know, I think there's a fear. It's easier for them to go out and, you know, plow up a cow field instead of come and tear up that sidewalk or that downtown street and rework it. You know, and even in this last bidding process, we had 5 contractors at the table in the pre-bid meeting. We had 5 contractors asking questions up until the very last minute. We had one contractor come in with the bid. The project's supposed to cost between $300,000 and $400,000 just to do this 3-block area. And the one contractor that came in was over $750,000. We can't spend that kind of money. We can't do that project if we can't get the contractors interested in bidding it where it needs to be bid. How do we go about, you know, working with those people to make them attracted to downtown redevelopment as opposed to, you know, plowing up green fields? And it's a phenomenon across the country. You know, it's much easier and cheaper to build new than it is to tear down old and you know, throw it away and build in historic neighborhoods. So that's kind of a problem that we have to look at.
Well, how do you know that bid's not a realistic bid?
Yeah.
For them? I mean, how do you know your assumptions are?
Because we can go out and price contract at cement at $3 or $4 a square foot. We know that, and they're coming in at $16 a square foot. We know that we can buy a park bench for $250, and they're bidding park benches, they're budgeting park benches at $700. So, you know, what that says to me is they're really not interested in doing the project, so they're overbidding it so that, you know, they don't get selected.
Maybe you should get outside contract.
Yeah. Anybody know anything?
But I mean, couldn't that indicate that there's a fundamental problem in, you know, something, whether it be zoning, the bidding process, et cetera? I mean, if it truly is easier for them to do work elsewhere, why in God's name would they want to work downtown? I mean, you know, they're not going to, obviously to them, you know,
they're gonna bid what they think they need to make, you know, a reasonable profit, or perhaps a customary profit. You know, if they can make 20% plowing up a field, and they've gotta, you know, go with 5%, take a job downtown, I mean, that's good business, not to take that downtown job. So, I mean, to me, it indicates, you know, not that, you know, necessarily a contractor is unwilling to work downtown. It means there's something downtown that says, hey, for us to make the kind of profit we think we need to take that job, it's gonna take $700,000.
Or they knew nobody else to bid.
Did you have something else you wanted to say?
I was just gonna say, I'd like to know what that might be and have an opportunity to try and address it.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it just seems like if it was an attractive project, somebody would take it, whether it's downtown or not. I mean,
Well, it'll be interesting when ERD 3 comes through, because that's basically Brooks. That's going to be a big challenge to see what we can do, because that's going to be a major opportunity, but also a big challenge. Yeah.
I did have another question. I mean, we've talked a lot about, you know, housing, you know, where the housing is going to, you know, try to be, you know, placed, you know, where we, you know, try to attract businesses, you know, to, you know, bricks and mortar, you know, downtown, whatever. But number one, you know, this is obviously some self-interest there. Is, you know, we haven't talked about this manufacturing itself. And, you know, I know there's not a lot of that goes on in Missoula, but, you know, perhaps that is one of the fundamental problems that we have. I mean, you know, even a welding job, you know, pays $13, $15 an hour. That's a pretty decent wage by some standards, you know, especially compared to a direct TV job. You know, but, you know, as you watch, you know, the traditional places where a lot of that manufacturing occurred, you know, make the transition from manufacturing to Costco and, you know, Walmart, et cetera, they're being forced, you know, farther and farther afield. You know, combine that with, you know, Montana's inherent logistical problems. When you've got a hot tub manufacturer up your Bitterroot, it's very hard for them to be off the I-90 corridor and ship their product. Not to mention the logistics of traffic, you know, people, et cetera, because you can't be downtown and make some of these products for whatever reason. And so where's manufacturing going to? Because that's, you know, that's a wealth creation, you know, industry itself, you know, and, you know, I think, you know, pretty viable.
Where are you doing business? Are you in the industrial park?
We are right behind the Western States CAT there, you know, and the only reason we're there is because we've been there for, you know, 20 plus years. If we were to have to purchase that land, there is no way. So you would be forced a long ways away, and it's becoming even more and more so. I mean, outside city limits.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's, yeah, a world of blessings and curses, right?
I think that's what the Missoula Development Authority is for, is to attract those kinds of manufacturing businesses out in that development park near the airport, right?
What's envisioned for the Champion site and for the Intermountain Lumber site in terms of businesses?
And you know, I don't know specifically what businesses are part of the program there, but certainly we're talking about mixed-use residential development.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually haven't talked to the developers about that. We're working so hard right now. I mean, in terms of economic development, one thing we're doing through our redevelopment agency is trying to get that site clean. You know, and once it is, then it's really viable for lots of things.
They're looking at retail, housing, you know, professional office, some parkland. So that's that kind of mixed use.
That's not a
14 acres of parkland, I'm sorry.
That's not a I heard it's out of Denver.
It is.
Well, yeah,
Kevin Mitty is one of the partners, Quality Construction.
So there's local partners as
Yep.
well as folks.
If I could go back to something, if you don't mind, you said about recruiting. I I think because of I think Missoula is one of the most creative communities I've ever been to, especially for a community this size. We've got just a great university. We've got great people who are interested in living here. And if I were, sitting in your shoes, and forgive me, but if I could, I would take a look at the types of jobs and types of businesses that we can promote and really try and nurture. Is it a direct TV type industry that is $10, $12 an hour? Or is it something like, and he just left, Steve Saroff here, he and his business partner have built a two-man company. Last year they sold over $1 million worth of software. Those are the types of, and they don't take up much room. It's in their bedroom. Those are the types of things that I would love to see us try and nurture, those super high-paying type companies. I know that Senator Baucus always says more high-paying jobs. Well, my view is let's create more homegrown millionaires. Let's help people build really successful companies, because the trickle-down effect is just absolutely amazing. If it's recruitment, I would hope that we would try and get some of those really brilliant people who may have left Montana. There's a Dr. Hooper over in Seattle. He built the whole medical field, medical bio industry over in Seattle. He's a Missoula native. We've got some of these really creative people that may want to come back or are here. And I think it's the nurturing of those types of people that I would really encourage.
Just to tag off of that, I think there are a lot of smart people out there writing about centers of excellence, and that talent flocks to centers of excellence. And you look at a place like Portland, it's becoming kind of the shoe design capital. You've got Adidas, Nike, footwear just moving in Portland from the Bay Area. So you've got a lot of companies starting to aggregate around shoe design. The other thing in Portland is a lot of hardware, computer hardware type design. You look at a place like Eugene, Oregon, there are a handful of bike companies in Eugene. And it's just, once you get critical mass and it starts feeding, people start attracting, spin-offs happen, and I think it's an interesting way of looking at things, is to say, what does Missoula want to attract and how best do it and fit in with what's here now and what could happen. An interesting observation.
Yeah. And it's, did those communities arrive in those places by design or by accident? And that's my struggle. I think if you're successful, you always say it's by design. I'd love to figure out the design.
I want to shift the discussion a little bit, and you can say it's not appropriate, but it seems to me that one of these strange attractors that Western Montana has is its natural beauty, and I haven't heard any discussion around tourism, because people do come here, 10 million people right now, into this area. And what's the vision for Missoula? We don't have a destination ski resort, but there's one that Tom McClay is trying to pull off. Is that something that we want in our future? And what's the economic impact of that? And where's tourism and the whole issue of ecotourism and play in Missoula? And your vision for the future?
Well, I'm going to step all the way back to 3 words that are, I think, critical: local option tax. When we, any of these questions about infrastructure, we do not have the resources. We are utterly constrained as a municipality in terms of how we raise revenues. And we're trying to be as creative as we possibly can about that while not killing folks. The local option tax is a tool. The state legislature has struggled with it. We came as close as we've come in the last session, but we still didn't get there. And ultimately, it's a revenue source. It's not property tax based, and allows us to capture at least a little of what we have to imagine is a pretty remarkable tourist income. It's a pretty democratic piece of business. You propose it locally, you vote on it locally, and you can stop it if you decide it's not working. But in communities that have applied it, Whitefish, for example,
That's what I'm saying.
you know, there's not a, I'm actually told that I don't think there's a state road anymore in Whitefish. They took all the urban routes, made them local, and they have the money to fix them and change them and beautify them in some cases. You know, they really can apply things to infrastructure. So that's a tool that helps us. You know, I had lunch with a Forest Service employee today who reminded me that there were, if this number isn't right, it's close enough to right. It's not even on this state the case or damn journalism degree. Millions of visitors to the Willow National Forest. Millions of visitors to the Willow National Forest. Some of whom live here, but many of whom don't. And at some point, they've had some sort of transaction here. And we are capturing none of that beyond the transaction. So I think there's real opportunity.
And here's a great opportunity for getting involved in this. We have a new Convention and Visitors Bureau, which meets regularly. The meetings are open. I think they're on the third Thursday, second Thursday, third Thursday, something like that.
Second Thursday, 8 a.m.
Monte, get involved. You know, I think that's one of the things. Businesses, I mean, you're the lifeblood of this community. Get involved in these things if you have some interest or some ability to add your knowledge to what they're doing.
The longer I stand here, the frumpier I get. I'm sorry.
You're looking good.
On the table. Yeah, good.
My wife and I moved from Oregon to Portland about 10 years ago. And Portland at one time was really a nice town, but now, if anybody's been there lately, it's a mess. I mean, they got a good mass transit system, they got light rail, they got a good bus system, but the traffic is just like Seattle. And so people now are building condos and everything close to downtown, so they don't have to commute for hours on end, back and forth. And so, what you're saying about livable downtown, condos, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's, if people have been to Europe, they've been to Belgium and Bruges, that's how they develop their cities. They're people oriented, they can walk, they don't have to get on an automobile constantly.
What are your goals for working with Ravalli County? That's a softball.
Wow, yeah, that's a softball. To the degree that Ravalli County wants to engage, I'm happy to do it. We're participating formally in the US 93 corridor study. That's a piece of business. The other transportation pieces that I think are interesting are the grassroots organization is very interested in completing a trail system connecting to the Bitterroot Spur, which is, in some communities, these bike and pedestrian trails have been real economic drivers. I mean, they create businesses along the trail that make real sense, and so that those are pieces of business that I'm pretty interested in.
I am hoping that I'm not being too, forward with this, but I'm looking at the clock, and some of the specs have a very firm ending time at 6, the 4 to 6 window. I know
the
others
teacher.
can continue. I'm wondering if there might be some opportunity to have some more informal networking that goes on, and if Mayor Enkin will still be available for those of people who maybe have some more questions for him. I hate to be overly forward, but I also know that a big part of being at these functions is the networking.
Okay, Jackie's told us we have to stop.
And I'm about 15 minutes late for another appointment, but if you'd have me back, I'd be happy.
I'd love to have these on a regular basis.
And I would be happy, and anytime, well, with a few exceptions, anytime, I'm happy to meet groups and whatever works, and I'm available at City Hall as well.
One quick final, you brought up the local option tax. How do you see us working on getting that in place?
Talk to your legislators. Those are the folks who are going to help drive that train. And we've had some excellent support and some limited support from our local delegation. but I think it makes a tremendous amount of sense for us. I've left business cards here, and again, I try to make myself as available as I possibly can. So you're more than welcome individually, if you'd like to set something up, don't hesitate to call the folks in my office. I'm no longer responsible for my calendar because I'm wrong.
Mayor Engen, thank you very much. And you can get him before he leaves.